Good evening and welcome to Sunday Night Prime. And as always, I'm very grateful that you're watching our program, not only Catholics, but other Christians, Orthodox, Protestant, Jewish friends. I'm still waiting a Muslim to write me a note. I'm waiting. Someone hears it, please write me a note. Now, we have two guests this evening, very, very interesting people, and I think you're going to enjoy them. They're a couple, and they're working very much with human rights of families. Very important thing, and we want to hear about that. This is Cathy Ruse and Austin Ruse, and the name is spelled R-U-S-E, which I think initially meant Russian.
We have traced our family back to the founding of America, and prior to that to England, and prior to that to France. So we believe that it was originally R-O-U-X, Rue.
Rue. And they came over on the Mayflower.
No, they came over later. They were some of the early settlers in Virginia.
I see. Very, very interesting. My relatives came through Ellis Island. Well, we're delighted to have you here, and Cathy has recently published a large article within the Washington Times on Girl Scout cookies. Now you say, what are we going to do with Girl Scout cookies? And as a kid, I can remember eating Girl Scout cookies, and they still taste the same, don't they?
They do. They're delicious.
But there are some troubles with, and we'll go into this because it's going to open up a whole can of worms that we have to look at.
Sadly.
The influences of Planned Parenthood, which is, from our point of view, a subversive
Subsidiary?
Organization.
Awesome.
So tell us, how did we start out with Girl Scout cookies?
Well, the article came out a couple of months ago. At the beginning of the year is Girl Scout cookies season, when you get the knock on the door and the little cuties come to your door to sell the Girl Scout cookies. Well, Austin and I have been doing a lot of soul searching and research, and we decided, usually we buy the cookies every year, but that this year we were going to say no, because we could no longer feel comfortable giving money that we knew would go to very leftist, radical, pro-abortion people that run the Girl Scouts at Girl Scout headquarters. Despite how much we love our neighbors and love the little girls who are in Girl Scouts.
And who have no idea what's going on.
Who don't know what's going on.
Not at all.
And so that prompted me to write this article, and I've written a couple, and Austin has before me a couple of years ago, just on what is being discovered about the agenda at the top of the Girl Scouts.
And by the way, we pointed out that it's not the agenda of the Boy Scouts.
No, it's not.
No, it's quite different.
The Boy Scouts have remained true blue. They are really an American success story of modern times in terms of fighting the culture and the forces in the culture that have tried to change them. But the Boy Scouts have fought back, and they still have a pledge to be morally true, and they pledge allegiance to God and to be morally straight.
And they exclude from leadership certain individuals who have certain moral problems which should preclude them from leading children. And for the positions that they take, the Boy Scouts have come under severe fire from the secular culture. The Boy Scouts for 100 years met in a beautiful building in Philadelphia, but because of the positions they take, the Philadelphia City Council threw them out of that building. And they're getting thrown out of public buildings all over the country for remaining true to their founding vision and to a moral vision.
They do not allow homosexual troop leaders. That's kind of if you want to bottom line it. And they have fought to defend that position as a private organization, and they have won at the Supreme Court.
On the other hand, the Girl Scouts we're sort of skipping ahead in the story, the Girl Scouts a few months ago allowed into a Denver troop a little boy who thinks he's a little girl.
Well, whose mom says he's a little girl.
Has him dressed as a girl.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And
so they...
as a psychologist, I want to tell you the confusion that generates by this type of thing. Very great confusion.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it could be child abuse even to perpetuate that sort of on a little 7-year-old boy.
It's certainly confusing to the girls who are in that troop.
Yes, of course.
But this is what the leadership at the Girl Scouts promotes, embraces, and requires, as my understanding, of it, under the name of inclusiveness. We're going to admit boys
diversity.
And diversity. That's right. These are sort of some of the new banners that they're flying under: diversity and inclusiveness. Not so new, but certainly not where it started 100 years ago by Juliette Lowe.
I wonder if the leaders of the Girl Scouts are themselves mothers.
Well, it's possible. They might not be biological mothers. There are many homosexual activists that sit on their leadership. There are a couple of out homosexual men on their leadership that are activists.
Yeah.
There's a whole strain running through their leadership that's very pro-abortion and pro-gay rights agenda. Who
Of the
knows?
Girl
I'm sure there
Scouts.
are of the Girl Scouts, right? I mean, it's
Please,
no. You keep peeling back the onion, and it gets ugly. I mean, it's really something to discover.
Isn't this tragic? Now, we use this word homosexual. I had spoken on this programs before. It's not really what we're talking about. We're not homosexual is a unfortunate human situation, and people don't seek for it. It's there, and there are people who are absolutely chaste, have been all of their lives, and they are homosexual. I know at least one man from an organization called our organization that I helped start.
Courage?
Courage, yes. I wasn't going to say dignity, but courage. And I knew the layman who started that, and the priest who passed away, was a saintly priest. And he got the organization going. And I went to their annual convention of Courage, and it was a very impressive group of men and women, and it was a very devout group. I think everybody I met there was a daily communicant. Mm-hmm. Everybody, the whole place. And certainly they were struggling against, temptations. For some reason, it appears, I don't want to say I'm sure of this, people do say it, that when you have sexual abnormalities, they are more compulsive than normal sexuality. Now, that's said, not in particular cases. And but I could tell you from my experience with people striving to be chaste that they are very devout. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Almost all of them daily communicants,
Yep.
which is an interesting thing. And I went to the annual national convention, and one of the brothers went with me. I said, "Now, brother, I'm not telling you what you're going to. Let me see if you can figure out where we're at." And he said to me, and he's an older brother. He said, I don't know what I'm at. And that's what it was about. And it was very sacramental and prayerful, the divine office. It was, St. Paul says, where sin abounds, grace even more abounds. And I was...
There's no question that people in courage are very heroic individuals.
Yes.
And they're going up against a very entrenched culture
Yes.
of the sort of dominant homosexual culture, which despises them.
Yes.
And the people connected to the Girl Scouts are certainly not in courage.
Can I give you a flavor of the cast of characters that
Yes.
we're talking about that
Yeah.
would not fit the holy striving people that you're talking about? I would think at all. We have, and I don't have to name names, and I won't, except they are real people, and they can. It's easily discovered. They don't hide these people, but their spokesperson is a gay rights activist who used to be in a homo punk band, as it's known, who was a violent band, would depict violence against women, and he himself would pose for shots appearing to be naked and dressed in women's clothing. I mean, this is a radical...
What's the name of the band?
The Dead Betties. And his boss apparently is the head of marketing and advocacy. He's an out gay man, an activist for gay rights.
And the one from the Dead Buddies does blogging on the Girl Scouts webpage.
Yes, he's their blogger. So when the girls want to read news and views, they're reading this man's words and what his views are. And they just had a recent hire last year of a woman who is on the Human Rights Campaign Board. And they are the leading advocate for same-sex marriage. These are radical
the Girl
activists.
Scouts.
These aren't holy
Girl
people
Scouts.
striving. This is radical activists in the front office of the Girl Scouts. So,
I think we could mention the name of the chief Girl Scout, the lady chief president of the Girl Scouts.
well, now it's Maria Chavez. She's new. Her predecessor, Kathy Cloninger, is the one who came on national television and said, "We partner with Planned Parenthood across the country."
She said this on the Today Show in 2004.
And that's never been retracted. And the new head is a woman who, in fact, partnered with Planned Parenthood as a Texas Girl Scout leader, and she's spoken at their conferences. And it's a very radical left-wing group of folks that have gotten to the top of the Girl Scouts and are running it.
Now, I want to point out that the local group of Girl Scouts, what do you call it, a troop?
Local troops, yeah.
It's in a parish,
Yep.
right? That's
Often.
where they get that.
Yep.
My two younger sisters, years ago, they were brownies and Girl Scouts in the parish, and seemed like the most harmless thing in the world. The Boy Scouts can be tougher. They can get into fights and things like that. But the Girl Scouts, and I want our audience to hear this. There are many priests watch this program, and they should hear what may be in their own parish. There's many very good lay people, Catholic and Protestant and Orthodox and Jewish, watching this program. Let them hear what's going on in the Girl Scouts. And I would say that the organization has been corrupted by its leadership.
That's right. That's well put.
And I'm relieved to know that the Boy Scouts aren't in this at all.
No.
Completely Now, I'm going to be asking you after our break, what else could you join? You know, where could a family go as a couple of girls that want to be Girl Scouts? What could they?
There are very healthy alternatives, Father.
Many. That's wonderful. And there's an article here in the Washington Times. Girl Scout cookies. Just say no. Left-wing political agenda undermines girls and families. What else? What else? All right. And we're going to have a break, and we'll be back in 2 minutes. Well, we've got a big problem here we're talking about, and we've got to do something about it. Now, give us some ideas. You've done a lot of thinking about this. What can we do?
Well, I think that people have to become educated about what's really going on. That's the main thing. The sort of contemporary criticism of the Girl Scouts really began in 2002, 3, 4, when it became well known that there was an annual conference that the Girl Scouts in Waco, Texas put on with Planned Parenthood, which produced, distributed highly sexualized, highly perverse, highly controversial material for the girls. This became well known in 2004. There was a national cookie boycott at that time. And at that time, the head of the Girl Scouts, Cathy Cloninger, went on the Today Show and admitted that Planned Parenthood partners, the Girl Scouts partner with Planned Parenthood. And this has never been retracted.
At that conference, the book that they would distribute to 10-year-olds was called It's Perfectly Normal, and included graphic depictions of sexual activities, and also it included the message that abortion can be a positive experience. So this was written by a Planned Parenthood person that sat on the Girl Scouts advisory board, and this was the material that they based this program for 10-year-olds and up in Texas. So that's what first got them in trouble. As Austin said.
And the national pushback was so intense that Cathy Cloninger had to go on the Today Show to defend the Girl Scouts. So that this was a very big black mark for them. Now you fast forward to just a few years ago, my organization works at the United Nations and does pro-life work. One of the women that we know that comes to the UN tried to attend a Girl Scout panel at the UN Commission on the Status of Women. All the adults who were not connected to the Girl Scouts were kicked out of the room. She stayed right outside the door until the conference was over and then walked in and discovered a stack of brochures published by Planned Parenthood called Healthy, Hot, and Happy. And I cannot describe to you what is in this brochure, but it is deeply perverse and offensive. We published that in our weekly report called The Friday Facts, which has a readership of almost 500,000.
Tell me about your publication.
What's called The Friday Facts. It comes out every Thursday afternoon.
Friday Facts.
Yes.
How do you get it?
You go to our website, c-fam.org, and subscribe. It's free.
Say it nice, slow.
c-fam, as in family, .org. And the publication is called The Friday Facts. It comes out by email every Thursday.
It's not a fax anymore.
It's not a fax, and it doesn't come out on Friday. But it comes out every Thursday. It reports on news going on at the United Nations that week. We're there every day. So we reported this brochure being distributed at a Girl Scout conference at the United Nations, and it just exploded.
The Girl Scout leadership
across.
went crazy, and families went. Can I read the quote from the book? Do you
Sure.
think? I don't think it has any.
Our daughters are watching, don't forget.
But this book, given to these girls only, says, some people have sex when they've been drinking alcohol or using drugs. This is your choice. If you want to have sex and you think you might get drunk or high, Plan ahead by bringing condoms or lube and putting them close to where you usually have sex, end quote.
This is in a brochure.
There are many bad quotes. This was one I
This
pulled
is a
out
brochure
for the girls at this UN meeting at No Adults Allowed. So this is the kind of business. Now,
St. Jude.
now I'm sorry. I'm like the one that keeps delivering
Father,
all the ugly
I know.
stuff.
I'm more reticent than you are. The brochure is actually worse than that.
Yeah, this is the one you could print, kind of, or talk about. But some of the quotes. But there are others. But
And the person who was moderating this panel at the United Nations was none other than the young homosexual
Josh Ackley,
who ran the Dead Betty's punk rock band.
Yeah, he was the facilitator for the girls.
His name again is?
His name is Joshua Ackley, and he's their media spokesperson and their blogger for the girls' blog, for the Girl Scout blog. He was now the Girl Scouts leadership deny that they distributed the brochure, but we think when we know it was there, and we think they're playing with words, that perhaps they didn't hand the girls, but there was a stack of them on the table, and the sister organization for Girl Scouts at the UN called the
WAGs.
World Association of Girl Scouts handed out the same brochure.
At
but
the
look,
same conference.
it's the same kind of thing they hand out all over the country when they partner with
this
Planned
got us
Parenthood.
going on the question of, is there a connection between the Girl Scouts and Planned Parenthood? And we started doing just a little bit of research and discovered there's lots of connections. People on the board who also serve on Planned Parenthood.
Yeah, they sit on the Planned Parenthood board. They sit on the Girl Scout board. They work in Planned Parenthood type of clinics, although we can't.
Tell Father about George Tiller's donation to one of the board members.
One of the board members of the Girl Scouts received a campaign contribution from George Tiller, the late-term abortionist in Kansas, when she was a Kansas official. Yeah. And she praised him publicly as being a visionary or something. I mean...
He was a specialist on late abortion.
Yes,
right?
right. That's right.
He gave money.
Exactly.
He gave money to one of the Girl Scout board members.
There's some. I mean,
who was a candidate.
So let's keep ticking through. So that was 2 years ago at the UN that this Planned Parenthood sex guide came to light, thanks to Austin's work and others, and people started asking questions. The next thing that happened, I think, the next big thing that happened was last year, when the Girl Scouts said that the troops had to admit boys as girls. That was that made the news nationwide, but it is their policy that if a boy presents himself as a girl, then he must be allowed to be part of a troop as a girl. So this is all just consistent with their ideology. Then shortly after that, it was revealed that one of these books for the girls, these journey books, was recommending that the girls go to Media Matters, the left-wing political organization that's how would you describe it?
It's a watchdog group on the far left that looks at what they consider to be conservative media. The girls were directed to Media Matters for questions about the media.
So that came to light. And then a poor volunteer for the Girl Scouts decided to wear her I'm pro-life t-shirt in after hours one day when she was just cleaning up, and her supervisor ordered her to turn the t-shirt inside out or leave the office. So she quit, or she left. So that made news. So all of these issues now are finally, it's not just a single thing, but this is a drumbeat of bad acts that the Girl Scouts leadership are being exposed in.
Well, one of the most important things I want to talk in our program after our next segment is, what do parents do if they have some girls that want to join the Girl Scouts? There are alternatives.
Yes.
Yes.
And they're strong alternatives.
Yes.
And it's incomprehensible to me, though. You know, growing up as a kid, I have sisters, and I worked around the parish, and of course the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts were part of the parish. You know, it was one of the organizations. And my sisters were Girl Scouts, and it's incomprehensible. It's also iniquitous. Mm-hmm. Iniquitous that the people who are using this organization to morally corrupt young people.
Right.
That's
We should make one thing very clear, that there are troop leaders and troops all across this country who are true blue and who don't believe in this message and resist this message and run good programs as best they can. And people should understand that we are not out to destroy the Girl Scouts. And most of the moms that are involved in this reform campaign do not want to destroy the Girl Scouts either. They want to fix the Girl Scouts.
well, you're going to tell us in our last segment, what are you going to tell people to do?
Good.
Mothers, fathers of Girl Scouts.
And bishops who allow the Girl Scouts in their diocese.
who have the thought doesn't bother coming to, bishops have lots of problems.
Yes.
They got all kinds of crazy people.
Nothing but problems.
Whoever thought that the Girl Scouts were going to be a problem?
Yeah.
And I don't think the Boy Scouts are a problem.
Yeah.
Are
No.
they? No.
Well, in Austin, I mean, it brings up the real tension, the tension between the many good people on the ground level, at the local troop level, that are just doing their best. And they have no desire to buy in to this propaganda that the leadership is putting out. But at some point, it's almost like there becomes a tipping point. You can avoid what the head office is sending down to your troop. You can throw it away. You can ignore it. You can pull out the pages of the books that are offensive. But at some point, the troop leaders that I have talked with and that I know very well, my friends, at some point they say, it's just too much. We can no longer associate ourselves with this organization because of the direction the leadership is taking it. And we're not, others have said, I'm going to stand and fight. Some have said, I just can't. We're going to leave.
Who elects the leadership? How do they get into their position?
I believe, well, the Girl Scouts is, they're like any 501c3, they're like any nonprofit charity. They, no doubt, the leadership is chosen by the board of directors. Yeah. So there's a board of directors that probably meets in New York City, and they make the decision of who's going to be the CEO. For years it was Kathy Cloninger, now it's this new woman, but I'm quite sure that it's the board of directors, which is peopled by pro-choice, pro-homosexual activists.
I think this would make a very excellent article for Catholic News, for the Catholic News Agency. Maybe we should get you onto this.
Well, I think Alejandro Bermudez at Catholic News Agency has covered this. I think he's actually covered it quite well. This particular story has really made the rounds in the Catholic press. One of the problems that we run into, though, Father, is that at the diocesan level, for instance, in Missouri, I'm from St. Louis. I've been in touch with a lot of Girl Scout moms from St. Louis who are very radicalized on this particular issue. They run into kind of a bureaucratic morass in the Chancery. The Chancery gives their imprimatur because the Eastern District of the Girl Scouts in Missouri are clean. So they say, we don't have any of these problems here. So what you're saying doesn't really apply to us. So that is kind of a tension for a lot of moms who recognize that the problem might be clean right here in my parish or right here in my diocese, but it's not clean nationally, and it's certainly not clean internationally. And what is our cooperation if we stay in this organization or if we don't do something to clean it up? And that's the position that a lot of bishops are being placed in. What do they do?
There's a problem with the money and where the money goes. Every little girl that signs up for Girl Scouts, even in a good troop, is automatically made a member of the World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts, which
WAGs.
is a outwardly pro-abortion group, international group. So they're automatically become a member of this bad organization. Some of the money goes every year. Girl Scouts gives $1 million and more to this international association,
Which is unashamedly pro-choice, pro-abortion.
So it's difficult. These are ties that have not, potentially they could be cut, I suppose, if there was a huge overhaul. But right now, it's just this is where your money goes, even if you're trying to be.
And the Girl Scout leadership defends their connection to WAGs by saying that WAGs is like the United Nations. We're one member country among more than 100. But the fact is, the United States Girl Scouts give 30% of the budget of WAGs. So it's substantial. WAGs, the World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts. And they're a very radical international outfit that the Girl Scouts are a member of.
I think we would like to encourage you to write an article for the Observatore Romano, the English-speaking edition, because this would get around among the hierarchy, and even in Rome. A statement by the Congregation of Education for the whole world would stop this thing in its tracks.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be talking to you after the broadcast about it to see how we could contact with the Congregation of Education. We're going to have a little break. I want to tell you we're having an exciting program. Yes, okay. So don't miss the last 15 minutes. Now, I'm thinking about our audience. On Sunday night, a good many of our audience, which is a couple 100,000 people, are grandparents. They're Sunday night, who watches television at 6 or 7 o'clock on Sunday evening? Many grandparents, not teenagers, not at all. And then many parents. But I want to mobilize the grandparents. So I want to get some clear indication of what people could do and how they could be in touch with you to get your own publication. So, folks, get your pencil and paper. Okay. Don't just sit there. Get up and get your pencil and paper.
Even if they're grandparents, I assume that they have a computer nearby.
Yes.
And they should sit down in 20 minutes when the show is over and look up a couple of websites.
All right, we'll tell them how to do it.
The first website is Girl Scouts Why Not?
Yep, Girl Scouts Why Not.
Why don't you
One
tell
word.
them what that is?
Yeah, one word, girlscoutswhynot.org. O-R-G.
Girl Scouts, why not?
Why not?
One word.
One word.
Dot
O-R-G.
O-R-G.
This is a group,
Of Catholics.
of Catholics, and they were, are they still in the Girl Scouts or did they leave? We don't know.
I would bet some of them are still in and some of them have left. That's kind of the big divide these days. But
Anyway,
we can talk more about
they
that.
put together a lot of information on all the kinds of things we're talking about. They're a good resource, and you can just read through, and they cite chapter and verse. I mean, they're very careful at documenting all their discoveries of these bad things at the Girl Scouts. So that would be an education, and that's a good one to go to. Another interesting one is 100 Questions for the Girl Scouts.
One word?
One
One
word.
word.
The number 100, 100 Questions for the Girl Scouts. And these are just great. There's actually...
Well, let me jump in.
Go ahead.
100 Questions for the Girl Scouts is a website of a Mormon mom named Sharon Slater, who I work very closely with at the United Nations. She's actually the woman who discovered the Healthy, Hot, and Happy brochure at the UN. She walked in, picked it up, became instantly radicalized on what was going on with the Girl Scouts, and she's really run with the ball on this. She's a former Arizona Mother of the Year. She's got like 8 kids, including some adopted from Africa. She's a real powerhouse. And her website is literally 100 Questions for the Girl Scouts, and they're very revealing questions.
What is her name again?
Sharon Slater.
S-L-A-T-E-R.
That's
right.
correct. So those 2 websites, and you'll discover many more websites. There are moms all across this country who become very radicalized on this particular question. There was I'm not going to use their name, but there's a woman in Southern California. Her daughter, she read our material. Her daughter then did a YouTube video on her objection to this little boy being allowed in a dress into the Girl Scouts in Denver. And they basically had to go underground, Father, because they were immediately attacked by the homosexuals, harassed at work, death threats into the house. It almost destroyed their family. That's what a lot of these people are up against. But this is they have had a website as well. Anyone who is concerned will find instantly a national family of people who are concerned in exactly the same way. So I would say, go to these websites and learn much more. And then you kind of have to make a decision. If you're connected to the Girl Scouts, you have to figure out, do we stay or do we go? If we stay, what do we do? Do we fight back? There are a number of different decisions that you can make. And quite frankly, I think all of them, except for complacency, are good decisions. If you go and join, we'll talk about American Heritage Girls here in a minute. If you leave the Girl Scouts and go to the American Heritage Girls, I think it's a fantastic decision. If you decide to stay and fight it out in the Girl Scouts, I think that's a good decision too. And what you can't do is just be complacent with the information that you discover.
It's actually a very good time for those who want to stay and try to do something about it. It's the 100th anniversary of the Girl Scouts this year. So it's a perfect time to look back. What were the objectives of the Girl Scouts? What did Juliette Lowe hope for? Instilling virtue and womanhood and so forth. And where is the organization today? It's kind of a perfect time to take stock and to make the case, if you believe it, as we do, that the leadership of the Girl Scouts has gone far off course. And I think there are enough, of course, there are many, many, many good people in the Girl Scouts that are not happy as they find this out, that they will be a force to be reckoned with. But the first, as Austin says, is education. And frankly, Father, people don't believe it. We tell them, or they hear otherwise, and they say, that can't be true. It can't be true,
yes.
right? You understand? But it's enough. There are a dozen websites and organizations. It's all documented. It's airtight, what we're talking about, and some of it is out in the open. You don't have to dig. You can look at their tax returns and see $1 million a year going to the pro-abortion WAGs group. It's there in black and white, year after year, 2006, 2007. I mean, it's right online. They'll see all of this online. It's not hard to find. So it's...
So if they do decide to leave, there is a very fine group. There are many fine groups, but one of them that we've come in contact with is called the American Heritage Girls. And the American Heritage Girls. And their website, I think, is on your screen now. American Heritage Girls was founded, I think, 15 years ago by a former Girl Scout leader named Patty Garibay. And she has been a powerhouse in recreating what the Girl Scouts were founded to do but have drifted away from. They are building genuine virtue under God for their young girls. And one of the very interesting things about the American Heritage Girls is that they have now become allied with the Boy Scouts. The Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts used to work together, but they don't anymore. It's probably a mutual agreement because the Boy Scouts do not allow homosexual scoutmasters. The Girl Scouts, I have no doubt, object to that. So there might have been irreconcilable differences on both sides. But the Boy Scouts have signed a letter of agreement with the American Heritage Girls. They run common programs, all sorts of things. The American Heritage Girls get to use all of the massive Boy Scout Philmont camp out in campgrounds and things like that. So American Heritage Girls is a very serious competitor and answer to the problem of the Girl Scouts.
And the crowning jewel of camping is the place you mentioned? Philmont. I mean, there's nothing better than Philmont.
Like 30,000 acres and mountains and...
Philmont where?
Philmont. I think Philmont it's out in the Southwest. It's New Mexico or Arizona.
I see.
But it's like the nirvana of Boy Scout camps.
30,000 acres.
It's huge.
So
that's the state of Nevada.
Exactly. Right. What state is it?
Rhode Island.
Right. So now the American Heritage Girls get to use that campground, all those facilities, and that's a real boon to them, and the Girl Scouts do not.
Father, the Girl Scouts don't allow girls to get merit badges for doing pro-life work, but the Girl Scouts allow Girl Scouts to have merit badges for doing abortion advocacy.
population control advocacy.
Who does?
The Girl Scouts.
Girl Scouts.
I bring that up to point out that the American Heritage Girls wouldn't even consider such an abomination.
Right. The Girl Scouts, and this will be found by anyone who scratches the surface on this, have merit badges for things like reproductive justice, is it? What is it called? I've got too many notes. Reproductive health. You can get a badge. You can get a badge as a little girl for promoting reproductive health, which, as Austin will tell you, are the key words for abortion and abortion access. They're not going to say you're not going to have an abortion badge, but reproductive health. But they will not allow, even today, a merit badge for pro-life advocacy. It's disallowed in the Girl Scouts. I mean, you can take any number of these things and see this kind of disparity. But as Austin says, the American Heritage Girls embrace all the pro-life work and so forth. I mean, it's what you'd want for your girls.
Well, I'm in touch with a good number of bishops and cardinals in this country. And I'm going to be in touch with them within this week, getting them to look at what's going on in their diocese with the Girl Scouts. I want to get as much facts as you can give it to me, and I'll get it out because naturally bishops have innumerable things they're taking care of. And if somebody says, the Girl Scouts, my goodness, what are we doing? What's wrong with the Girl Scouts? It sounds ridiculous.
Well, it's like the claim, that the Vatican is beating up on the nuns. How dare you beat up on the... Here you were trying to beat up on the Girl Scouts. Trying to make it better. Now, one of the problems that they will run into, Father, is that the Girl Scouts have been given a clean bill of health by a man by the name of Bob McClarty, who runs the National Federation of Catholic Youth Ministries. Yeah. So he has looked at all of this material which we have shown you today, and he has determined that it's either not true or it's not a problem. So when Bishop X decides to study this issue, he no doubt will be in touch with the National Federation of Catholic Youth Ministry, and he will find out from them that there's not a problem. So there's a little bit of a disconnect with this particular
I'll
institution.
put that in my letter.
Yes.
Now, where is McCarty, where does he operate out?
Washington, D.C.
I see. Yeah. USCC office.
He's not in the USCCB. He's somewhere downtown, so it's not a part of the USCCB. It's a standalone organization that is sort of oversees Catholic girls' participation in the Girl Scouts, and I think other initiatives as well.
One of the things he does is he says, the Girl Scouts do not have any formal partnership with Planned Parenthood. See, you look in the Girl Scouts' own website, it says we have no partnership with Planned Parenthood. And yet, you look, I have a list of states: Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Nebraska, New York, Pennsylvania, Texas, Tennessee, Virginia, perhaps more. In those states, there are Girl Scout Planned Parenthood partnerships, active programs today where they are partnering, sponsoring sex ed. A lot of it is sex ed programs, conferences, what have you. Right in New York, the New York Penn Girl Scouts, I looked at their website a couple of weeks ago. It says the Planned Parenthood group is something called Girl Now or something. One of our proud partners is the Girl Scouts. It's a very you almost have to engage in willful blindness not to see the connection between the Girl Scouts and Planned Parenthood, despite their disclaimer, their official disclaimer, whatever it says. You just look to the facts. And so Bob McClarty and his organization will say, well, they point to the disclaimer.
He's
and
taking
so forth.
the word of the Girl Scout leadership in New York that there's not a problem. And he doesn't believe his own eyes when he gets other information.
Now, I think, Father, I should say, occasionally when something particularly egregious is pointed out, say in one of those books, enough of a fuss will arise. And then the Girl Scout leadership will say, okay, next year we'll change the book. And they'll sometimes change that part of the book. They portray it, the leadership of the Girl Scouts, as, these are little mistakes along the way that any large organization will make. And we'll correct them. But at some point, there are so many mistakes, and and the biographies of the leaders are so glaringly pro-abortion, pro-far left radical stuff that you're only a fool. You're a fool if you ignore it. You know, you can't write it off as simply, oh, it's just another oversight.
A blip.
Somehow that very poisonous, sexually promiscuous, whatever it is, pro-abortion thing got into one of the materials again. Gosh, how did that happen? Well, it happens because the ideology of the leadership is perfectly comfortable
Supports
with
it, promotes
a
it.
pro-promiscuity, pro-abortion ideology. They're perfectly comfortable with that, and that is why things keep appearing
Look
in
at it this way,
the
Father.
program.
If an organization came into a diocese and said, we want to start running programs for your little girls, and who are you? Well, you know, most of our board members are connected to Planned Parenthood.
Yes.
Some of them are active homosexual activists. A lot of our programs you might not really accept, but we're not going to
promote same-sex. I promote same-sex marriage when I'm not doing Girl Scout work. I promote abortion rights at the UN when I'm not doing my Girl Scout.
Now,
so forth.
Bishop Groeschel, can we come into your diocese and run programs out of your parishes? You would say no. You would
have
absolutely say no.
great reason
but
for
that's the situation that is present right now at the Girl Scouts. We will not run anything like that in your diocese, but we support it over here. That's kind of what's going on right now, Father.
Well, did you publish on this already?
We both have published on this already, but there are many, many sources beyond the work that we have done. This is not our primary work. This is something that has come to us because we have noticed, and we thought that it would be important to publish on it.
Well, could we give a couple of titles to our group that they could either order a video or a book?
I don't think anything like that exists just yet, do you? I think the best that is out there are these websites that we've already
Everything
given.
is online now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Websites.
I can give the title of the 2 pieces that I've written
Yes.
in the Washington Times. They could find those. That's kind of a summary before you get into. Yeah, in the Washington. So you could just look up my name, Cathy Ruse, Washington Times, and the first one is Girl Scout Cookies Just Say No, and the other one is Planned Parenthood Girl Scout Cookie Monster.
I'm so grateful to do this. This morning when I got up, I wasn't thinking that I was going to be there in problem with the Girl Scouts. I'm a psychologist who's a priest, and I deal with all kinds of problems all over the place. That's what I do for a living. But I never thought the Girl Scouts. I really, my 2 sisters, who are now, of course, I have to tell them about the Girl Scouts.
Yeah.
And my nieces and nephews and grandnieces and nephews have to watch out. How sad, though, going back to your childhood and mine, how good things the Scouts did. The Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, the Brownies. What were the boys? The Cub Scouts? Mm-hmm. Yes. And there were Life Scouts and Star Scouts and Eagle Scouts. One of my friends in the seminary was an Eagle Scout. And
one of the friars who's with you today told me he was an Eagle Scout.
Oh, was that so?
Yes.
That's a great honor.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think it still is.
Yes. Oh, it would be, absolutely. Thank you so very, very much for joining us. God bless you all. Thank you this evening, and let's pray for our Lord, the Holy Spirit, our blessed Savior, to care for and protect and defend young people, young girls and boys, and through the organizations, help them to grow as a good Christian. And we ask you, O Lord, to help us. May I ask each one of you, as I always do, to support EWTN and help us send those envelopes in to keep EWTN on. God bless.